Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Canary Capital CEO says XRP set to be the leading token for real-world asset tokenization. Okay guys, let's get into it. Okay, so we've got the Canary Capital, who is Steve McClurg, and he's talking about how XRP is looking to be the real world asset for tokenization. So I thought I'd discuss this with you guys. Canary Capital, they've really been on the ball when it's come to like XRP ETFs, and not just XRP. I believe they've got a HBAR ETF. They've done, I think they've got Bitcoin and Ethereum too. But the point that I'm just trying to make is like, they've been in the crypto space for a little while, and they've really been trying to, have their finger on the pulse when it comes to adoption, basically, right, for their company. They've done quite a few ETFs at this point. And so, while obviously his opinion is still his opinion, I definitely give him a little bit of credibility because, one, obviously he has Canary Capital as the CEO, so he definitely understands crypto, but he's also not a hype merchant, right? Like when he talks about crypto and whatnot and certain assets, he's not someone who's, trying to give completely unrealistic price predictions and stuff like that. Like he's very grounded in his thoughts, but like he's saying here that XRP could be the leading, asset. So, I just thought this is something worth discussing. There's a few topics within this that I'm gonna cover, and I'm gonna give you my thoughts at the end. So, we've got here XRP is emerging as a front runner in real world asset in brackets RWA tokenization, according to Canary Capital CEO Stephen McClurg. He argues recent developments around the XRP ledger has fundamentally changed how institutional investors view the asset. Speaking on a podcast hosted by A-Invest's MD Adam Shapiro, McClurg explained that XRP was not always a major focus for him. While he had followed the asset for years, he said the progress made over the last 2 years stood out, particularly Ripple's success in integrating the XRP ledger into mainstream financial infrastructure. Yeah, I mean, look, if there's two things that's going to, attract people when it comes to like crypto technology or any new technology, right? One's going to be price, right? Because I'm sure that's something that's probably caught his eye. Like when he saw that, XRP had a huge rise in price, I'm sure that's something that definitely gave him that, oh, okay, that's looking good. That's definitely one to watch. But also the fundamentals, like when you see everything that Ripple did last year, like buying so many companies, and they've been doing it from before that as well. But you can clearly tell that they're building a crypto empire, right? You can tell what they're looking to do. And obviously, all this stuff that they're doing, all these, things that they're buying, the custodial services, the clearinghouse, all this stuff, the stablecoin, the DEX, and all these things that they're building out, it's all going to be on the XRP ledger. So obviously, it's adding like volume to it, it's adding utility to it. So all this is stuff that can be, purposed on the XRP ledger, which of course is going to be great for the network and the ecosystem. So it obviously makes sense as to why, he's now started to look at XRP a bit differently. And I think that makes sense. Like they've had a really great year. Again, if you're going to compare it to price, okay, yeah, I get how at that point you might be like, well, the price still isn't that high. But again, look at the whole market. The whole market is where it is. And out of what we had of this so-called bull run, if that's what we want to call it, XRP had one of the best performances. I think it was the highest performance actually, possibly. So obviously that straight away, tells you that even in this bull run that we did have, XRP was one of the best performing assets during that time. So that's going to speak volumes, right? Okay, so just moving on. XRP ledger gains traction on Wall Street. McClurg noted that the XRP ledger is now being used to move stablecoins and tokenize real-world assets, including Ripple's own stablecoin RLUSD. This utility, especially within traditional finance, is why he believes XRP is set to become the leading token for real-world asset tokenization. Unlike many blockchain networks that are still in experimental stages, the XRP ledger processes live financial transactions. This shift towards real-world usage rather than speculation is what McClurg sees as XRP's biggest advantage as institutions explore tokenization. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very fair point. When you look at all these things, as I say earlier, that they're now putting onto the XRP ledger, there's a lot of activity going on, and there's a lot of people already tokenizing on the XRP ledger. So it's not like this stuff wasn't happening before. But I do think as you start to see Ripple building so many things, I just think like it's naturally going to be more and more speculation coming to XRP. And I've said this before, like one of the best forms of promotion to this day is actually word of mouth. Word of mouth is actually classed as like the best form of promotion. And I think the reason why that is because it's organic, right? Like if you're seeing an ad or something like that, right, you're being force fed that, right? Someone has made this advertisement to appeal to you, right? Whereas if you're just going through word of mouth, this is someone who has no connection to Ripple, who has no connection to the product or whatever, who's just tried it and said, hey, this product is really good. I've tried it out. It's great. So when you start to think of it from that perspective, yes, if you've got people talking about XRP all the time, and you know, recently XRP's even been on like the media, it was on CNBC, and they're calling XRP the new crypto darling. So it's like you can see how now the narrative is just shifting around XRP, because back in the day with the media, XRP was not getting a good rep at all. You know, it was quite the opposite. You know, at the end of the day, they was looking at the lawsuit and I was thinking, has XRP really got a future? That kind of thing. People was just doubting its utility, etc., doubting if it was going to be a crypto that really lasts or stood the test of time. And, you know, you can see how much that changes. You know, you can see now how the whole narrative has just completely shifted. And this is where, one, as I say, price action, because that is true. It is going to be price action that will hit headlines. And two, again, fundamentals, utility. Like it's the fact that, you know, XRP is going to be used to move financial money. It's being integrated with the financial system. Like these types of things are what's going to catch the eye of, you know, the wider public and institutions and governments, etc. That's what's going to really, you know, make it hit home for them and make them think, that looks like it's worth trying out, or maybe we need to get invested in that. That looks like a valuable asset if we can do all these things. So yeah, I completely understand that stance. Now, another thing here that I want to get into, which I thought was interesting, how XRP compares to Hedera and other networks. While bullish on XRP, McClurg also highlighted Hedera as another protocol to watch. He drew a distinction between the two, explaining that XRP Ledger is more aligned with traditional finance, while Hedera is geared toward enterprise use cases. Specifically, Hedera's strength lies in fast data processing and enterprise-grade applications, attracting interest from professionals in the software and enterprise technology sectors rather than typical crypto traders. Beyond XRP and Hedera, McClurg pointed to emerging networks like Injective and Sui, which he sees as competitive with established players such as Ethereum and Solana in specific use cases. Okay, so interesting that, you know, it got compared to Hedera. As you guys know, I'm invested in HBAR as well as XRP. So again, this is what I mean. Like, I'll be honest with you, that doesn't surprise me in the sense of, you know, Hedera and XRP being mentioned in the same breath, because they're both utility tokens, right? They both can do a lot of things for industries and governments and enterprises, etc. I think it's just the thing of comparing the two. And this is the thing that I will say. So I hold XRP, I hold HBAR, I actually hold many other cryptos. I've got 20 cryptos in general. I've got 5 that I really believe in, and then the rest are just cryptos that I had from the previous bull run that they're just speculation. Like, I'm just hoping to get rid of these. If we do still have a bull run this year, I'm hoping to just get rid of those because I don't really, you know, I don't really follow them too much. I'm not really invested in their future like that. But yeah, like for me, what I think is like my investment thesis is just I invest in cryptos that I believe have an actual use case for them, that have a purpose. So I look at what cryptos can actually serve different industries and change them and revolutionize them, and I invest in them because those are the ones that I think, well, they should have long-term value, right? Because as crypto gets more adopted, I assume that they will get picked up. So, you know, I think that's a pretty logical choice to make, right? So that's how I base my investment decisions when it comes to crypto. Now, the thing that I will say in terms of comparing, this is my thing with it, right? I try not to compare some networks just because I think what it comes down to is this. When it's all said and done, there's going to be differences of opinion on networks anyway. And the truth of the matter is, every network is going to have its strengths and weaknesses. So I don't really think you can look at it as just one network is just better than the other. There are some where I'll say, well, it's quite clear. Like, for example, if we look at Bitcoin as a network, Bitcoin is literally slow, it's expensive, so I think it's pretty easy to compare that to like XRP, for example, because as a network trying to do, for example, like cross-border payments, it would be terrible, right? It would be absolutely awful. But when you're talking about like Hedera, which is also fast, which can also scale, which is also cheap, same as XRP, I think it's hard to compare these because they have very similar attributes. And so what I think it comes down to personally, I just think it comes down to what people's preference could be. So there could be a reason why they pick XRP, and like this, like Steve said here, he says XRP is built more with like traditional finance in mind, whereas Hedera is more enterprise use case built. So even from that perspective, you could think, okay, so if I'm thinking like a use case that I need to do that's more traditional finance based, I'd go with XRP. Whereas if you're thinking, okay, I need someone that's going to be enterprise grade ready type of application, then okay, I'll work on Hedera. You see what I mean? And so that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think when it's all said and done, I think it's going to be down to sometimes, like, could just be general personal preference, or it could be, for example, something, an attribute that one network has that the other one doesn't. But it's not necessarily going to be, there's always going to be one clear winner. Like it could just be a thing of, this is very close, so we could use either one and it will be fine, but we'll choose this network because of this reason, right? So another example of this is just like Hedera is so good with carbon friendly, like it's so carbon friendly. So if you're thinking about doing something that you wanted to make sure it was carbon friendly and reduce carbon footprint emissions, etc., you'd be thinking, okay, I'll use the Hedera hash graph, right? And so this is what I'm saying. Like, I've got no issue with this being said, because at the end of the day, this is what a lot of people do in general. I'm just saying this is the way I view it, but I think it's interesting to see. But yeah, back to the matter at hand. I think this is pretty accurate. Like, do I think that XRP could be the leading network for tokenization? Well, yeah, because it's fast, it's cheap, and it can scale. Like, that's what you want, right? So I don't think this guarantees that XRP will be the leading asset for tokenization, but I do take this guy's word. With credibility, because I know the position that he's in. I know that he's worked with these technologies, and also from myself, from my own personal research, like, I am invested in XRP because I believe it's a very good cryptocurrency. I believe it's very, very good at what it can do. And I believe as crypto gets more adopted, XRP will be one of the leading networks out there and the leading tokens. So for me, he reaffirms the things that I already believe. And I agree, like, with the points that he makes. I think they're very valid points. So just some food for thought here. Definitely be interesting as we start to see, how things unfold. I mean, one thing I will say is we've got this kind of stick in the mud going on with the whole crypto bill right now with regulations. It seems like we've hit a bit of a brick wall, so I don't know how that's going to pan out. I'm really hoping that we can just get this done sooner rather than later. However, I will say I do also want it to be done right. I don't want this to be a thing where the regulations come out and really just screw up the industry. So, like, at the end of the day, if it does take a bit longer to make sure they've got it correct, then I suppose that's probably the better thing in the long term, because it might be great for price action at the moment, but long term, if the bill's really, really negative to crypto and investors, then we're going to suffer for it in the long term, right? So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But yeah, definitely, I think at the end of the day, XRP definitely has the potential. Now, it is a little bit behind, I will say, and that's just because XRP's focus before was on cross-border payments, right? So it wasn't really being looked at in terms of tokenization. Obviously, it was possible. It was always possible, but Ripple wasn't really focusing on tokenization, right? They were going all in on cross-border payments. So now they've adapted their thinking, and they're, obviously expanding the way they look at the XRP ledger and, its uses and stuff. I think it has a chance to definitely be the leading network. Whether it will, I don't know, but it's definitely plausible. It's definitely plausible because we know how good the network is. So yeah, definitely be interesting to see. But overall, I think this is a really good take. Like, there's a lot of valid points here. So time will tell how it all pans out. But yeah, I think this is a fair assumption and a fair assessment to make. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell. Take care.